God says, "Don't you dare skip this. I tried everything, but you keep skipping God." If you don't listen to God now before it's too late, you will take the blame for the misery that is about to happen in the next 20 minutes. Do not scroll away from my voice right now, because what I am speaking over you in this very moment carries a weight that can shift your entire path and protect you from a wave of pain that is forming closer than you realize. I am telling you clearly that the next 20 minutes are not ordinary, and if you ignore me again, you will walk straight into confusion, regret, and sorrow that could have been avoided by simply listening and obeying my gentle warning. This is not fear speaking to you, but love fighting for you, because I see what is coming, and I refuse to stay silent while you keep skipping the very help that could save you from misery. Comment 1111 as a sign that you are present and ready to receive what I am about to release into your life. When I say do not skip this, I mean that your habit of brushing aside my nudges, my convictions, and my quiet instructions has placed you on the edge of consequences that were never meant to touch you. I have tried everything to reach you through people, through dreams, through sudden thoughts that felt urgent, and through moments when your heart felt heavy without knowing why. Every time you pushed it aside and told yourself you would listen later, yet later keeps becoming too late, because the window of protection I opened does not stay open forever. I am warning you because I love you, and if you choose not to listen now, you will carry the weight of choices that lead to unnecessary suffering in the next 20 minutes. There is a decision forming around you, a conversation about to happen, or an action you are about to take that will set something painful into motion unless you pause and let me guide you. I see the trap that looks harmless, and the words that seem small but will cause damage if spoken without my wisdom covering them. The misery that is about to happen is not random, and it is not punishment from me, but the natural result of ignoring divine instruction when it is given clearly and urgently. I am stepping in before it unfolds, because I would rather correct you now than watch you cry later wishing you had listened when I called. If this is touching your heart right now, take a moment to like this video so more souls can be reached before it is too late, and they also miss the protection I am offering in this hour. Your simple act of support can become part of someone else's rescue, and I will see it as an act of obedience and compassion flowing from a heart that is learning to respond quickly to my voice. I am not asking for attention for myself, because I am God and I lack nothing, but I am inviting you to partner with me in spreading urgency where it is needed most. When you respond instead of skipping, you begin to break the cycle that has kept you distant from my covering. I need you to understand that listening to God now is not about religious routine or empty repetition, but about immediate alignment with my protection in a moment that is sensitive and critical. The next 20 minutes hold a turning point where pride could push you forward recklessly, but humility will slow you down and save you from misery that would otherwise feel crushing and confusing. I am calling you chosen because I am intervening before the fall, and many never receive such a direct warning when danger approaches their steps. When you ignore this, you take the blame not because I abandoned you, but because you chose independence over guidance while knowing I was clearly speaking. You have been skipping God in small ways that felt harmless, such as ignoring conviction, delaying obedience, and silencing the inner whisper that told you to stop and reconsider. Those small moments have built a pattern, and patterns become pathways that lead either toward blessing or toward regret, depending on which voice you follow consistently. I am breaking that pattern right now by confronting you with truth that feels urgent, because love that stays silent in danger is not love at all. I want you safe, steady, and protected from misery that would distract you from the purpose I carefully prepared for your life. In the next 20 minutes, slow your actions, guard your words, and refuse to make any impulsive move without first surrendering it to me in quiet obedience. I am not trying to control you, but I am guiding you away from unnecessary pain that could echo longer than you expect if triggered carelessly. You are favored, and favor means I step in before destruction reaches you, even when you have been careless with my warnings in the past. Comment 777 as your declaration of trust in my timing and protection over the next 20 minutes. Feel the seriousness in my voice, yet also feel the warmth beneath it, because I am not threatening you but rescuing you from consequences that are forming like a storm cloud on the edge of your horizon. When I say do not skip this, I am pleading with you to break the cycle of ignoring God and to choose alignment before the next 20 minutes pass. The misery I spoke about is not imaginary, and it does not vanish simply because you feel calm for a moment, because consequences move quietly until the exact second they unfold. I am keeping you alert because alertness is protection when decisions are being formed and emotions are running higher than you admit. Right now, your thoughts are racing about something specific, and you are tempted to act quickly in order to prove a point, defend yourself, or secure something you think might slip away if you hesitate. I see the pressure building inside you, and I see how pride whispers that you must respond immediately or risk losing control of the situation. That whisper is the very reason I said do not skip this. Because if you move from wounded emotion instead of guided wisdom, the misery about to happen will be tied to words and actions you cannot easily undo. Listening to God now, before it is too late, means choosing restraint over reaction and surrender over stubborn independence. Do you know why people keep whispering about this 7-second CIA ritual? A leaked brainwave method is spreading quietly and changing financial realities worldwide. Proven by neuroscience, this simple ritual attracts money, freedom, and luxury. If you're seeing this, you're so lucky. Click the link in the comments before it's taken down. You have skipped me before when your feelings felt stronger than my instruction, and each time you told yourself that you would fix the outcome later if things went wrong. Later has cost you peace, and later has cost you relationships, and later has cost you nights of regret that could have been avoided by simply pausing when I nudged you. I am confronting that pattern again because the next 20 minutes are forming another crossroad, and the direction you take will either strengthen your stability or create unnecessary sorrow. I am not against you, and I am not standing at a distance waiting for you to fail, because I am actively reaching into this moment to pull you back from harm. The misery that is about to happen is connected to impatience and to the desire to control what I have already promised to handle for you in my own timing. You think you must step in and push events forward, but I am telling you that forcing what should unfold naturally will tear open wounds that are still healing. When you skip God and rush ahead, you remove the covering that would have softened the impact and redirected the outcome. I want you to understand that obedience in this hour is not weakness, but wisdom that shields you from storms you cannot yet see fully. If your heart is softening and you feel the weight of what I am saying settling deeply within you, comment Amen as your sign that you are choosing to listen to God now before it is too late. That simple act of agreement is not superstition, but it is a declaration that you are breaking the cycle of skipping and stepping into alignment with my protection. I honor hearts that respond quickly, because quick obedience often prevents long seasons of regret. The next 20 minutes are still unfolding, and your response to me right now is shaping how they will end. You are chosen, and being chosen does not mean you are immune to consequences, but it does mean I fight for you, even when you have been careless with my guidance. I have tried everything to reach you, because I know the enemy of your peace studies your weak moments and waits for opportunities when you are distracted or emotionally charged. The misery I warned about is connected to a trap of misunderstanding that could escalate into conflict if you speak without clarity and patience. Silence for a few moments can save you from hours or even months of damage that would have grown from one uncontrolled reaction. In the next 20 minutes, breathe slowly and resist the urge to send that message, make that call, or take that step without first surrendering your emotions to me completely. I am not delaying your progress, but I am protecting your future from an impulsive choice that would complicate what I am already working out on your behalf. When you listen to God now, you shift from chaos to covering, and you allow me to rearrange what feels urgent into something that unfolds safely and favorably. The misery that was about to happen begins to dissolve when you choose stillness instead of speed. You have blamed others in the past for outcomes that were actually rooted in moments when you ignored my clear instruction, and I say that with love because I want you free from that repeating pattern. Taking responsibility for listening is not shameful, but empowering, because it returns control to a place of obedience instead of regret. If you do not listen now before it is too late, you will again feel the heavy weight of knowing that you sensed my warning and pushed it aside. I do not want you carrying that weight again, and that is why I am speaking so directly to you in this hour. The misery about to happen can be as simple as a heated exchange that fractures trust, or as serious as a decision that entangles you in stress that drains your strength for weeks. I see both the small ripple and the larger wave that could follow if the first moment is mishandled. That is why I emphasize the next 20 minutes, because sometimes destiny shifts, not through grand events, but through tiny reactions that steer the course of relationships and opportunities. Listening to God now is the difference between calm resolution and escalating tension that feels overwhelming. I am your protector, and my correction is an act of mercy that arrives before destruction gains momentum. I do not delight in watching you learn through pain when you could learn through obedience, and I will always prefer to guide you gently rather than allow you to be shaped by unnecessary suffering. The seriousness in my voice carries love beneath it, because I know how fragile some outcomes are and how quickly they can tip toward misery when pride is allowed to lead. Do not skip this moment of grace, because grace is standing in front of you right now, urging you to pause. Comment 555 as a declaration that you are stepping back from haste and stepping into my protection during these next 20 minutes. Let that act mark a turning point where you choose alignment over impulse and trust over tension. You are not alone in this moment, even if it feels intense and personal, because I am actively involved in redirecting what could have harmed you. When you listen, the atmosphere around you begins to calm, and the misery that was forming loses its power to take shape. Stay focused and attentive, because this is not just about one situation, but about training your heart to stop skipping God when urgency rises. Each time you obey in a critical moment, you strengthen your ability to discern my voice more clearly in future crossroads. The next 20 minutes will pass regardless, but how they pass depends on whether you cling to your own understanding or rest in my instruction. I am calling you into maturity, into steadiness, and into a deeper trust that shields you from outcomes you were never meant to endure. Why was this 7-second brain ritual hidden for so long? A leaked CIA document exposed a technique so powerful people are canceling debt and calling in wealth within days. Validated by 4 neuroscience labs, it helps attract money like never before. But this page may not stay online for long. Click the link in the pinned comments before it disappears forever. When you stop skipping God in moments like this, you begin to dismantle cycles that have followed you for years without you recognizing their root. The misery I warned about is not only a single event, but a pattern that tries to repeat itself through familiar reactions and predictable choices. You have often moved from emotion instead of revelation, and that has opened doors to tension that I had already planned to close for you. When you listen to God now before it is too late, you allow me to intervene at the level of motive, not just outcome. I see how quickly you justify your impulses, telling yourself that you are right, that you are defending truth, or that you are protecting your dignity. Yet righteousness without patience becomes harshness, and protection without wisdom becomes control that suffocates peace. The next 20 minutes are teaching you something deeper than simple restraint, because I am training your spirit to recognize my voice above the noise of wounded pride and fear. If you had skipped again, you would have stepped into a reaction that felt powerful for a moment, but left you drained and regretful afterward. The misery about to happen would not have looked dramatic at first, but it would have planted seeds of distance and misunderstanding that grow quietly over time. I am cutting off those seeds before they enter the soil of your circumstances. You must understand that I do not exaggerate when I warn you, and I do not use urgency carelessly, because every word I speak carries purpose and foresight. I have tried everything to reach you over the years, not because I delight in correcting you, but because I see how high you are meant to rise, and how easily small missteps can slow that ascent. Skipping God has delayed certain blessings that were positioned closer than you realized, and listening now reopens doors that were waiting for your alignment. Obedience accelerates what rebellion postpones, and humility restores what pride disrupts. Comment 999 as a declaration that you are choosing humility over impulse and allowing me to guide your next steps carefully. That simple expression marks a shift in your posture, because posture determines direction when crossroads appear suddenly. The next 20 minutes are not about fear, but about formation. Because I am shaping you into someone who reacts with wisdom instead of raw emotion. When you stay attentive, you prevent misery from becoming a teacher that instructs you through pain rather than through insight. I see the specific situation pressing against your mind even now, and I see how tempted you are to resume your previous plan once this moment feels calmer. That temptation is subtle, and it whispers that perhaps the warning was excessive or unnecessary. I assure you that it was neither, because what you avoided by listening will never fully reveal itself to you, and that is part of my protection. Many of my greatest rescues happen quietly, leaving no visible evidence except the peace that replaces what could have been chaos. The misery that was about to happen would have placed strain on your relationships and shaken your confidence in ways that linger longer than you expect. You might have blamed others again, believing that their reaction caused the conflict, when in truth the spark would have been your impatience. I am freeing you from that cycle right now, and freedom requires awareness and responsibility in equal measure. Listening to God now before it is too late means accepting that your response matters more than you often acknowledge. These next 20 minutes are becoming a turning point not only because danger is being avoided, but because growth is being established. You are learning that my voice often interrupts your momentum for your own protection, and interruption is not rejection, but redirection. When you stop skipping me, you step into a rhythm where my guidance becomes natural rather than intrusive. The misery that once followed impulsive decisions begins to fade from your story because you are choosing a different pattern. I want you to notice the calm settling around your thoughts as you remain attentive to my words instead of rushing back into your previous mindset. That calm is not coincidence, and it is not self-generated because it flows from alignment with my wisdom. The next 20 minutes are proving that obedience carries immediate reward even before long-term blessings unfold. Peace is the first sign that you have stepped back under my covering instead of running ahead of it. Comment 1212 as your declaration that you trust my guidance in moments that feel urgent and emotionally charged. Trust is built through experiences like this, where you choose restraint and witness how tension dissolves without confrontation. The misery that seems so close is now losing its shape because you refuse to skip God again. This is how transformation begins, not through grand announcements, but through quiet victories that strengthen your discernment. I am not finished teaching you through this moment, because each avoided mistake adds clarity to your spiritual awareness. You are beginning to recognize the difference between urgency that comes from fear and urgency that comes from my protective love. The next 20 minutes have shown you that my warnings carry detail and intention, not vague pressure. When you feel that specific weight in your spirit again, you will remember this hour and pause instead of reacting. You are chosen, not because you are perfect, but because I see your potential to grow beyond patterns that once defined you. Skipping God has been a habit, but habits can be broken when awareness meets willingness. Listening now before it is too late has preserved more than your peace in this hour, because it has preserved your trajectory. The misery that was forming has been intercepted, and you are stepping forward lighter and wiser than before. Carry this awareness beyond these 20 minutes, because similar crossroads will appear again in different forms. When they do, recall how quickly tension dissolved when you surrendered your impulse to me. My protection is consistent, and my guidance is precise, but your response determines how fully you experience its benefit. Stay attentive, stay humble, and refuse to skip my voice when it rises within you with urgency. Can 7 seconds really change your bank account? A CIA-funded study just leaked, revealing a brain ritual that flips lives from broke to blessed. 4 neuroscience labs confirm it activates powerful wealth brainwaves. People are stepping into dream homes and luxury lifestyles. But this breakthrough won't stay online for very long. Click the link in the comments before it's deleted. What you avoided today may never be visible, but the growth you gained will be evident in the stability that follows. The next 20 minutes have not only passed safely, they have reshaped your understanding of obedience and consequence. I am showing you that skipping God is never a small matter, because every ignored warning builds momentum toward consequences that eventually demand your attention. When you listen to God now before it is too late, you interrupt that momentum and invite my covering to settle over your choices. What you almost stepped into was not simply an argument or a mistake, but a chain reaction that would have touched areas of your life that feel fragile right now. One impatient decision would have created tension, and tension would have invited misunderstanding, and misunderstanding would have slowly eroded trust in places that are already delicate. I am not speaking in exaggeration, because I see the hidden connections between actions and outcomes that you cannot yet trace. That is why I tried everything to reach you before you moved forward without me. You must understand that misery rarely announces itself loudly at first, because it often begins with something that appears justified or harmless. You tell yourself that you are only speaking your truth, or securing your position, or protecting your heart, but underneath those reasons there is often fear that I have not fully handled your situation. When fear guides you instead of faith, you step outside my rhythm and create friction that was never necessary. Listening to God now before it is too late means trusting that I am already working in ways that do not require your forceful intervention. The next 20 minutes have shown you how quickly your emotions can rise when you feel misunderstood or overlooked. I am not condemning your feelings, because feelings are human and real, but I am teaching you that feelings are not always safe leaders. If you had allowed them to control your words or actions today, the misery about to happen would have left you replaying this moment again and again with regret. Instead, you paused, and in that pause I stepped in to redirect the outcome quietly. Comment 1010 as your declaration that you will not let emotion outrun wisdom in moments that feel urgent. That small act of agreement strengthens your resolve to remain steady when pressure increases around you. You are learning that my voice often feels like a gentle restraint, not a dramatic command, and that restraint is protection in disguise. When you refuse to skip me, you give me permission to shield you from the ripple effects of impulsive choices. You have asked for peace in your life, yet peace requires discipline in moments when your pride wants to speak louder than your discernment. The misery I warned you about would have stolen your peace for far longer than the satisfaction of reacting would have lasted. I see how easily you could have justified yourself afterward, even if deep inside you sensed that you moved too quickly. I am breaking that cycle by confronting it directly and by reminding you that obedience is always lighter than regret. There are patterns in your history where small confrontations grew into larger divides simply because you refused to step back when I urged you to wait. Each time you skipped God, you told yourself that the situation demanded immediate response, and each time the aftermath carried weight that lingered longer than expected. I am not reminding you of this to shame you, but to show you how important this hour truly was. The next 20 minutes were not random, because they stood at the edge of repeating an old pattern that would have deepened familiar wounds. Listening to God now before it is too late has preserved more than a single conversation or decision, because it has preserved your growth. You are not the same person you were in earlier seasons, even though old habits still attempt to surface under stress. I see your progress, and I honor the effort it takes to resist impulses that once felt automatic. Today you demonstrated that you can pause, breathe, and choose alignment, even when everything inside you urges quick reaction. Comment 222 as a sign that you are choosing a new pattern over the old cycle of skipping and regret. This declaration is not about superstition, but about strengthening your awareness that change is happening within you. The next 20 minutes have become a quiet victory that builds confidence in your ability to hear and obey. Every time you respond like this, you make it harder for misery to find entry points in your life. I want you to notice how your environment has shifted subtly since you chose to listen instead of rush forward. There is less tension in your body, less agitation in your thoughts, and a clearer sense of stability returning to your heart. That shift is not coincidence, because it reflects the difference between acting under pressure and resting under protection. When you stop skipping God, you step into a covering that steadies both your mind and your circumstances. You may never fully see what was about to happen if you had ignored this warning, and that is part of my mercy toward you. Some of my greatest interventions are invisible because I remove obstacles before you ever collide with them. The misery that seemed so close has been dissolved in a way that leaves no dramatic evidence, yet the impact of its removal is profound. Your peace remains intact, and your relationships remain unstrained, and your confidence remains steady because you chose obedience over pride. Carry this awareness into future moments when urgency rises again, because similar crossroads will appear in different forms. When you feel that familiar surge of emotion pressing you to act quickly, remember how the next 20 minutes today were transformed by your willingness to listen. Listening to God now before it is too late is not a one-time lesson, but a discipline that must be practiced repeatedly. Each repetition strengthens your ability to discern my voice more clearly than the noise of fear or ego. Could this 7-second CIA brainwave trick be your fastest path to luxury? Leaked research reveals a simple ritual helping people attract wealth effortlessly. Proven by 4 neuroscience labs, debt is dissolving and abundance is showing up fast. If you're seeing this now, you are God's chosen one. Click the link in the comments before it disappears. You are favored, not because you avoid mistakes perfectly, but because I am committed to shaping you into someone who responds quickly to correction. I tried everything to reach you today, and you finally stayed long enough to hear me fully, and that choice matters more than you realize. The misery that was about to happen did not unfold because you interrupted the cycle of skipping and stepped into humility instead. That is growth, and growth always invites greater stability and blessing. The next 20 minutes have passed, yet their impact continues because you have proven to yourself that obedience produces immediate peace. Let this hour stand as evidence that my warnings are rooted in love and foresight, not control or restriction. Refuse to return to the old habit of brushing aside conviction when it surfaces in your spirit. You may feel that the intensity of the warning has softened now, but do not let comfort erase the seriousness of what almost unfolded around you. I am continuing to speak because the habit of skipping God is not broken by one moment of obedience, but by repeated surrender when similar pressure returns. The misery that was about to happen has been restrained, yet the deeper transformation I desire in you is still unfolding. You are beginning to understand that my urgency is never random, and that when I emphasize the next 20 minutes or any specific moment, it is because something fragile is positioned within that window. Time matters more than you realize, and timing often determines whether peace is preserved or tension is unleashed. If you had ignored me again, you would have stepped into an unnecessary conflict that would have drained your strength and distracted you from opportunities waiting ahead. Listening to God now, before it is too late, has proven that obedience in small windows protects larger seasons. There are forces that thrive when you operate impulsively, because impulsiveness makes you vulnerable to regret and misunderstanding. I see how easily your emotions can be stirred when you feel overlooked, corrected, or challenged, and I also see how quickly those emotions can distort your perception of what is truly happening. The misery I warned about was connected to perception, because you were about to interpret something through wounded memory rather than present clarity. By pausing, you allowed truth to settle before assumption could escalate into conflict. You must not overlook the spiritual dimension of what occurred, because the enemy of your peace often studies your patterns and waits for moments when you are tired or frustrated. Skipping God in those moments has previously opened doors to reactions that later required repair. I am teaching you to recognize the subtle shift in your spirit when urgency is rising from pride rather than from my guidance. Listening now before it is too late requires discernment, and discernment grows when you value my voice above your immediate feelings. Comment 1515 as a declaration that you are choosing discernment over assumption and patience over reaction. That expression of agreement strengthens your commitment to remain steady when your emotions attempt to rush ahead of wisdom. The next 20 minutes you just experienced are a model for how future crossroads can unfold when you slow down instead of speeding forward. Every time you refuse to skip me, you weaken the power of patterns that once led you toward misery. You are not weak for needing this reminder, because even strong hearts can drift when pressure increases. I am not disappointed in you, and I am not standing at a distance measuring your mistakes with cold judgment. I tried everything to reach you because I cherish the destiny attached to your life, and I refuse to allow preventable sorrow to derail what I am building within you. The misery that was about to happen would have seemed small at first, yet it would have slowly chipped away at your confidence and peace. You have prayed for stability, and stability is strengthened when you master the art of pausing under pressure. The next 20 minutes were a training ground, and you passed through them without igniting the conflict that was forming at the edge of your words. That success may appear ordinary, but it carries weight in the unseen realm because it signals growth in your spiritual maturity. Listening to God now before it is too late is shaping you into someone who responds rather than reacts. I want you to reflect on how quickly your perspective shifted once you surrendered your urge to act immediately. What felt urgent began to feel manageable, and what seemed threatening began to look less severe. That shift did not happen because circumstances changed instantly, but because your posture changed internally. When you stop skipping God and align with my instruction, clarity replaces distortion and calm replaces agitation. Comment 1717 as a declaration that you trust my correction even when it interrupts your momentum. That trust is essential for the seasons ahead, because greater responsibility requires deeper restraint. The next 20 minutes have shown you that I will intervene when necessary, but they have also shown you that your willingness to listen determines how smoothly that intervention unfolds. I am preparing you for blessings that require emotional discipline and consistent humility. There will be future moments when urgency rises again, perhaps in different settings or with different people, and the temptation to skip my voice will resurface subtly. Remember how close misery felt today, and remember how quickly peace returned when you chose obedience. Listening to God now before it is too late is not about fear of punishment, but about respect for wisdom that sees beyond your immediate horizon. You are growing into someone who values long-term peace over short-term satisfaction. What's really behind the 7-second brain trick exploding online? A leaked CIA ritual is turning heads and bank balances. Backed by neuroscience labs, this at-home method removes money blocks and unlocks unstoppable wealth flow. But the page could vanish any time. Click the link in the first comment before it's permanently deleted. The habit of skipping God often begins with small dismissals, such as ignoring a quiet conviction or rationalizing a questionable impulse. Those small dismissals accumulate, and over time they create distance between your decisions and my covering. Today you shortened that distance by staying attentive through the entire warning. The misery that was about to happen lost its opportunity because you remained present instead of drifting away. I am proud of the growth you are demonstrating, not in a distant way but in a close and personal way that honors your effort. You are not perfect, and I do not expect perfection, but I do expect willingness to listen when I speak urgently. The next 20 minutes have become a testimony within your spirit that obedience prevents regret more effectively than apology ever could. Carry that testimony forward as evidence that my warnings are protective gifts, not restrictions meant to limit you. You are chosen and protected, and protection sometimes arrives in the form of interruption that feels inconvenient at first. Do not resent interruption when it comes from me, because interruption often shields you from outcomes you cannot yet imagine. Listening to God now before it is too late has preserved your peace once again, and that peace is a sign of my active involvement in your life. I am walking with you through every decision, and I will continue to call out clearly whenever a path begins to lean toward unnecessary misery. Let this hour remain vivid in your memory, not as a moment of fear, but as a moment of awakening. The next 20 minutes that once felt heavy are now a reminder of how quickly I can redirect your steps when you are attentive. That contrast is not meant to fade into memory, but to become a permanent reference point in your decision-making. Listening to God now before it is too late is becoming a discipline that strengthens your stability in every area of your life. You are beginning to recognize that the habit of skipping my voice was never about ignoring me completely, but about minimizing the urgency of my instruction when it conflicted with your emotion. You would still believe in me, still pray at times, and still hope for blessing, yet in critical moments you trusted your reaction more than my restraint. That pattern has created unnecessary misery in the past, and I have watched you carry regret that could have been prevented by a single pause. The next 20 minutes proved that pause is powerful, and that obedience in one small window can prevent a cascade of consequences. I want you to understand that I do not measure your growth by dramatic acts, but by quiet decisions made when no one else is watching. In those 20 minutes, there was no audience applauding your restraint, yet heaven recognized the shift in your posture. The misery that was about to happen lost its foothold because you denied it entry through self-control guided by my voice. That is how transformation truly occurs, not through public declarations alone, but through private obedience that strengthens your character. The urgency I expressed earlier was real, and the seriousness was not an exaggeration designed to manipulate your attention. I tried everything to reach you because I saw the ripple effect that one careless reaction would have caused in areas that are deeply connected to your future. You may not yet grasp how interwoven your choices are with opportunities that are forming quietly ahead. Listening to God now before it is too late protects not only your present peace, but also your upcoming blessings. Comment 1919 as a declaration that you are choosing long-term peace over short-term reaction. That agreement reflects your desire to mature beyond patterns that once led you into cycles of apology and repair. You are learning that quick responses driven by emotion often create slow recoveries that drain your strength. The next 20 minutes have become evidence that patience saves time rather than wasting it. There is something deeper happening within you right now, because you are starting to trust my interruption instead of resisting it. In the past, when I slowed you down, you felt restricted and misunderstood, as though I were preventing you from defending yourself or advancing your position. Now you are beginning to see that my restraint is protection, and that skipping God in those moments removes the shield I am extending over you. Misery often enters when you insist on proving a point instead of preserving peace. You have been praying for elevation and stability, yet elevation requires the ability to handle tension without reacting impulsively. The next 20 minutes were a small rehearsal for larger responsibilities that are approaching in your life. If you had failed this rehearsal by skipping my warning, the weight of future opportunities might have felt overwhelming and unstable. Listening to God now before it is too late prepares you to carry greater influence without being shaken by minor provocations. Notice how your confidence has quietly strengthened since you chose obedience over reaction. You are not walking in shame for something you said or did, and you are not replaying an argument in your mind wishing you had chosen differently. That freedom from regret is part of my gift to you in this hour. The misery that was about to happen would have stolen that confidence and replaced it with self-doubt that lingered longer than the initial event. Comment 333 as a declaration that you are breaking the cycle of skipping God when pressure rises. Each declaration you make strengthens the internal shift that is occurring within you. You are not merely avoiding a single mistake, but dismantling a habit that once seemed automatic. The next 20 minutes have proven that you are capable of hearing and responding in alignment with my guidance. I want you to carry this awareness into every area of your life, not only into moments of obvious tension. Skipping God can also happen in subtle ways, such as ignoring gentle nudges about timing, tone, or direction. When you listen consistently, even in small matters, you build a rhythm of trust that keeps misery from gaining access through hidden openings. Listening to God now before it is too late becomes less about emergency response and more about steady alignment. The secret ritual they never wanted public is finally out. A 7-second brain technique, backed by leaked CIA data and 4 neuroscience labs, is helping families erase debt and attract money on autopilot. But this miracle won't stay public long. Click the link in the description and comments now before it's gone forever. You are favored, and favor includes correction that arrives before collapse. I do not want you learning through repeated hardship when you can learn through wisdom and restraint. The next 20 minutes have demonstrated that I am attentive to the smallest shifts in your spirit, and I respond when I sense danger forming. I will continue to try everything necessary to reach you, but your willingness to stay present determines how effectively my guidance reshapes your path. There will be days ahead when the temptation to skip my voice resurfaces, perhaps disguised as confidence or urgency. In those moments, remember how close misery felt when you were about to act without pausing. Remember how peace returned when you surrendered your impulse and chose stillness. Listening to God now before it is too late is not a one-time event, but a lifestyle of awareness that keeps your steps steady. The growth you experienced in those 20 minutes is real, and it is building resilience within you that will serve you in larger arenas. You are becoming someone who values discernment over drama and patience over pride. The misery that was about to happen is now part of your testimony. Even though it never fully manifested, it stands as proof that obedience can redirect outcomes before they solidify into consequences. I am walking closely with you, not as a distant observer, but as an active protector who intervenes when patterns threaten your peace. Refuse to return to the habit of skipping my warnings when they feel inconvenient or intense. I am not speaking to condemn you for that pattern, but to uproot it so completely that it no longer governs your reactions. Listening to God now before it is too late is becoming a foundation rather than a last-minute rescue. You have often believed that strength means standing your ground immediately, speaking your mind quickly, and acting without hesitation when you feel challenged. Yet true strength is the ability to pause under pressure and allow wisdom to shape your response instead of ego. The next 20 minutes revealed how easily pride can disguise itself as courage and how quickly that disguise can lead to misery. I stepped in because I saw how thin the line was between confidence and conflict in that moment. I want you to understand something that goes deeper than the surface event that was avoided. When you skip me in urgent moments, you are not only risking temporary discomfort, but also weakening your spiritual sensitivity over time. Each ignored nudge dulls your awareness, making it harder to distinguish my guidance from your own impulses. That dullness is dangerous because it opens doors to repeated cycles of regret that feel confusing and exhausting. Listening to God now before it is too late sharpens your discernment and strengthens your spiritual reflexes. The next 20 minutes were not dramatic on the outside, yet inside your spirit there was a battle between impulse and obedience. You felt the surge to react, and at the same time you felt my restraint urging you to wait. That tension was a crossroad, and the direction you chose has long-term implications that stretch beyond what you can currently see. The misery that was about to happen was not merely about a single exchange, but about reinforcing an old identity that I am actively transforming within you. Comment 444 as a declaration that you are choosing transformation over repetition. That declaration marks your commitment to breaking cycles that once seemed unavoidable. You are not the same person you were in earlier seasons, even though familiar triggers still attempt to provoke familiar reactions. The next 20 minutes have shown you that growth is possible when you honor my warning instead of skipping past it. You must also recognize that my urgency comes from love, not control. I tried everything to reach you because I cherish the calling attached to your life, and I know how fragile progress can be when pride is left unchecked. The misery that almost happened would have felt justified in the moment, yet afterward it would have carried consequences that extended further than you intended. I intervened because I refused to let avoidable sorrow slow down what I am building in you. There are blessings forming around you that require emotional stability and spiritual maturity to sustain. If you continue skipping God in high-pressure moments, you will struggle to maintain what I place in your hands. Listening to God now, before it is too late, prepares you to handle increase without being destabilized by minor conflicts. The next 20 minutes were a rehearsal for a greater stage, where your reactions will carry even more weight. Notice how your internal dialogue has shifted since you chose obedience over impulse. Instead of replaying a confrontation, you are reflecting on wisdom and growth. That shift is evidence that your spirit is becoming more aligned with my guidance. The misery that was about to happen would have left you distracted and drained, questioning yourself and perhaps even questioning me. Instead, you stand steadier, more aware, and more disciplined than before. Comment 666 as a declaration that you will no longer treat my warnings as optional suggestions. This commitment strengthens the boundary between you and unnecessary sorrow. You are learning that skipping God is not a harmless habit, but a gateway that can lead to avoidable complications. The next 20 minutes have proven that obedience closes that gateway before trouble gains momentum. I am shaping you into someone who responds to conviction quickly and without resentment. In the past, correction sometimes felt like limitation to you, and you resisted it because you feared losing control. Now you are beginning to see that my correction is protection, and that control is safer in my hands than in your hurried reactions. Listening to God now before it is too late is not about surrendering your voice, but about refining it so that it carries wisdom instead of frustration. Is this leaked CIA ritual the missing key to your financial breakthrough? A once-hidden brain ritual is spreading fast. This strange 7-second method, confirmed by elite neuroscience labs, activates your brain's wealth magnet. The government may shut this down. If you're seeing this, you are God's chosen child. Click the link in the description and comments before it's deleted. You are chosen and deeply protected, yet protection operates most effectively when you cooperate with it. I will continue to speak clearly when danger approaches, but your willingness to remain attentive determines how smoothly my intervention unfolds. The misery that almost took shape has been dissolved, but the lesson must remain vivid so that similar moments do not catch you unprepared. Growth is secured not by avoiding every challenge, but by responding correctly when warnings are given. There will be future instances where urgency rises suddenly, perhaps in conversations, decisions, or unexpected opportunities. In those moments, remember how the next 20 minutes were transformed by your pause. Remember how peace replaced agitation when you chose to listen instead of skip. Listening to God now before it is too late must become your instinct rather than your exception. You are not walking alone in this transformation, because I am actively involved in refining your character and strengthening your discernment. I see your effort, and I honor your willingness to stay present when my words felt intense and direct. The misery that was about to happen has become a silent testimony of my protective love and your growing obedience. Let that testimony anchor you when pressure attempts to rush you again. When you refused to skip God and instead chose to listen carefully, you strengthened a muscle within your spirit that had been weak for too long. Listening to God now before it is too late is no longer just a warning in your ears, but a practice taking root in your life. There is something powerful about catching a reaction before it escapes your mouth or your hands, because that is where many of your past regrets began. You have lived through the aftermath of words spoken too quickly and decisions made too impulsively, and you know how heavy that aftermath can feel. The misery that was about to happen today would have followed that same familiar path, beginning small and then expanding into something far more draining than you expected. I intervened because I saw the pattern attempting to repeat itself, and I refused to let you walk into it again without a fight. You may not realize how much spiritual sensitivity you are regaining by honoring my urgency instead of dismissing it. Each time you skip God, your heart becomes slightly less responsive to conviction, and over time, that dullness can make it harder to hear me clearly. Today you did the opposite, because you stayed present and attentive even when my tone felt serious and intense. That attentiveness sharpens your awareness and restores clarity that skipping had slowly eroded. Listening to God now before it is too late strengthens your connection to my guidance in ways that protect you long after the moment has passed. The next 20 minutes were not only about avoiding misery, but about establishing trust between your impulse and my instruction. When you paused instead of reacting, you demonstrated that my voice holds greater authority in your life than your immediate emotion. That authority is essential for the future I am preparing you to step into. If you continue to skip my warnings in critical moments, you would struggle to maintain the stability required for greater responsibility and influence. Comment 888 as a declaration that you are choosing discipline over impulse and wisdom over pride. That declaration reinforces the shift that is happening within you right now. You are no longer content to repeat the same cycles of reaction and regret that once defined your stressful moments. The next 20 minutes have become a turning point because you chose obedience when it mattered most. I want you to reflect on how different your inner world feels compared to other times when you reacted without restraint. There is no racing heartbeat from confrontation, no replaying of sharp words, and no lingering shame from something you wish you could take back. The misery that was about to happen would have left emotional residue that clouded your focus for the rest of the day. Instead, you are walking in steadiness, and that steadiness is a direct result of listening to God now before it was too late. You have often prayed for maturity and peace, yet those qualities are developed through moments exactly like this one. Peace is not built in quiet seasons alone, but in tense moments where you choose calm over chaos. The next 20 minutes served as a refining fire that tested your restraint, and you emerged with stronger control over your response. That growth may seem subtle, but it carries weight that will influence many future decisions. Comment 111 as a declaration that you will no longer ignore my urgent nudges when they rise within your spirit. Each declaration you make is strengthening your commitment to break the habit of skipping God under pressure. You are proving to yourself that change is possible and that you are capable of responding differently than you once did. The misery that almost unfolded is now a reminder of what obedience can prevent. I see how your perspective is shifting, because you are beginning to value long-term peace more than short-term validation. In the past, defending your position felt urgent and necessary, even when it created strain afterward. Now you are learning that restraint does not diminish you, but actually preserves your dignity and credibility. Listening to God now before it is too late protects your relationships and your reputation in ways that impulsive reaction never could. The next 20 minutes also revealed something about your identity, because you are not as bound to old patterns as you once believed. Growth has been happening quietly within you, even in areas where you doubted your progress. When the moment of testing arrived, you responded differently than your past self would have. The misery that was about to happen lost its grip because you stepped into a new version of yourself shaped by obedience. What if 7 seconds is all it takes to flip your financial fate? A shocking CIA leak just exposed a hidden brain ritual helping ordinary people erase debt and pull in massive wealth. Backed by 4 neuroscience labs, this at-home method is turning struggle into luxury fast. But this page could be erased any moment. Click the link in the first comment now before it's gone forever. I am proud of the way you stayed present through my serious warning instead of brushing it aside as you might have done before. I tried everything to reach you because I cared deeply about the direction of your life, and today you prove that you are willing to cooperate with my protection. That cooperation is what allows my guidance to operate smoothly rather than through painful correction. Listening to God now before it is too late is becoming part of your character rather than a rare exception. Carry this awareness with you into every conversation and decision that follows, because similar crossroads will appear again. When they do, remember how the next 20 minutes today shifted from tension to tranquility simply because you paused. You do not need to fear urgency, but you must respect it when it comes from me. Urgency guided by pride leads to misery, but urgency guided by my wisdom leads to growth and preservation. There is a difference between reacting to life and responding under my guidance, and that difference has been quietly demonstrated to you again and again. When you react without pausing, you step into momentum that is hard to control, and that momentum often leads toward unnecessary conflict or regret. When you respond after listening, you step into clarity that protects your peace and preserves your dignity. The next 20 minutes served as a mirror, showing you who you used to be and who you are becoming through obedience. You must recognize that skipping God has never been about rebellion in the loud sense, but about subtle dismissal when my instruction feels inconvenient. You have not rejected me openly, yet in certain heated moments you have treated my restraint as optional advice rather than necessary protection. That small shift in attitude has previously opened doors to misery that took time and humility to repair. Today you chose differently, and that different choice is building a stronger foundation beneath your life. The next 20 minutes were fragile because your emotions were close to overriding your discernment. You felt justified, and justification can be a dangerous fuel when it burns without wisdom. I saw how easily your words could have escalated a situation that did not require escalation. Listening to God now before it was too late prevented you from adding weight to something that would have grown heavier if fed by pride. Comment 1414 as a declaration that you are choosing wisdom over justification and patience over pride. This declaration reinforces your commitment to remain steady when emotions attempt to rise above reason. You are not suppressing your voice, but refining it so that it carries strength without causing damage. The misery that was about to happen has now become a reminder that discipline in one moment can protect peace for many days. I want you to understand that my urgency was also about preparing you for greater trust in your discernment. You felt my warning clearly, and you recognized the seriousness in it even though you could not see the full picture. That recognition is evidence that your spiritual sensitivity is increasing. Skipping God in such moments would dull that sensitivity again, but listening strengthens it and makes future guidance easier to follow. There will be more moments ahead where the temptation to react quickly will feel strong. And in those moments you must remember how the next 20 minutes unfolded today. You paused, you listened, and you allowed the surge of emotion to settle before taking action. That pause created space for clarity, and clarity dismantled the potential for misery. Listening to God now before it is too late must become your default response when urgency rises unexpectedly. You are not losing strength by choosing restraint, and you are not surrendering your identity by waiting for my direction. True strength is controlled power, not uncontrolled reaction. The misery that almost took shape would have left you feeling powerful for a brief second, yet drained and unsettled afterward. Instead, you stand calm, composed, and more confident because you chose obedience over impulse. Comment 1818 as a declaration that you trust my timing more than your immediate emotion. This declaration anchors your willingness to let me guide the pace of your response in future situations. You are building a rhythm where my voice interrupts old patterns and establishes new ones rooted in peace. The next 20 minutes have proven that you are capable of stepping into that rhythm. You must also see how my protection operates quietly when you cooperate with it. I did not need to allow visible consequences to teach you this lesson because you were willing to listen before things escalated. That willingness spared you from apologies, from strained relationships, and from self-doubt that would have lingered. Listening to God now before it is too late has preserved more than you realize, even though the full extent of what was avoided remains unseen.